Hey everyone, Sycra here, and in this lesson I'm going to be showing you how to create a perfect square and turn that perfect square into a perfect cube in 2-point perspective. So this tutorial is geared towards people who already understand 2-point perspective. This is not an introductory tutorial to 2-point perspective, so if you don't know 2-point perspective, please learn that. And then watch this. And anyway, I figure if people are looking for this video, probably they have an understanding of 2-point perspective, because why else would you be searching for how to create a square in 2-point perspective, right? So anyway, I'm going to start real simple with a horizon line and 2 vanishing points. So let's say a vanishing point here and a vanishing point here. All right. So far so good. Now let's create this square on the ground, and so I'm going to create the bottom of the square. So this line can of course be any size depending on how big your square is going to be. And again, this line too, I can move it anywhere. This just depends on you and where you want to put your square in space, right? So okay, let me just do a better job of that one so it's going straight to that vanishing point. All right, and I can also get another point. So now I have this side, like I have one of these sides, right? But the tricky part in this whole thing is, where do I put this line? How do I figure out that back edge to make a square, right? And this is the whole purpose of this tutorial, is to get from this point to figure out that, where that line goes. So, okay. What I'm going to do next is I am going to create a line that goes straight up from this bottom corner, and it goes up to the horizon, then down. And the way I'm creating these straight lines in Photoshop is I'm taking a brush and then holding the shift key. I also I use the line tool for these other lines, but now just holding the brush, or selecting the brush, placing down, holding down shift, and then you can go and create straight lines. Okay, so now I have this line. Now, if I was doing this traditionally, the next thing I would do is I'd whip out this right angle, and I would move it around. Now, because I'm doing this digitally, I have to select this, and I hit Control T to transform it if I want to move it around. And right in the middle, you'll notice this thing. This is an anchor point, and I can drag that around, and that shows where this rotates around, right? So if I move that anchor point to the bottom corner, which is where I want to move it, then if I rotate this, it rotates at that, it pivots at that point. So what I would do is just, line this up, and then I would draw lines. And what you want to do is have it so this bottom part is touching the blue line, and then you can scale this. And to scale in proportion, remember, hold down shift and then just drag at one of these points. And I would get it so the bottom is touching the blue line, and then the sides touch each one of the vanishing points, and I would have to rotate it, and then move it until I got that to happen. So yeah, it's almost there, and yeah, so about there it would be touching all those points. But let's say I don't have that ruler because I'm just working in Photoshop. Well, it's very easy in Photoshop to just make one. I just made a new layer, and now what I'm gonna do is take my polygonal lasso, and I'm going to hold shift and that's going to make it so I create a straight up and down layer, or line, and then a straight horizontal line. So now I have a right angle right here, and that's what I want. And now I'm going to fill that with a color. So in this case, purple. I'm going to set the mode to multiply, and that will allow you to see through this, so it's like a transparent or translucent purple. And I'm going to do the same thing. So Control T, I'm going to move that anchor point to the bottom corner. I'm going to move that bottom corner so it touches that blue line. Now I'm going to scale this so that it goes through, or so that the sides touch the vanishing points and also that blue line. So this is a little bit tricky to get it just right. And I'm moving with the arrow keys for more precise movements. But yeah, there we go. So now I have it so this right angle touches this vanishing point, and also this blue line. Now I'm just going to mark that bottom point where it meets that line right there, and not on that, on a new layer. I'm just going to mark it right there. So okay, now we have a new point, and let me just reduce the opacity of this purple thing because it's quite distracting. So you still can see it. So now we have this yellow point right there. And maybe I'll darken that so it's a bit easier to see. There we go. Okay, now we would, if we're doing this traditionally, take out this 45-degree angle. And again, we can just make one in Photoshop, so let's go ahead and do that. Again, taking our lasso tool, but this time I'm going to go at a 45-degree angle. And fill that. Set the mode to multiply again, but this time I'm going to lock the transparency. I'm going to take my marquee and I'm going to divide this in half. Okay, and I'm going to fill it with another color, so maybe orange. Okay, so now I have half green, half orange. I'm going to hit Control T. I'm going to rotate this, and what I want to do now is rotate it so that it is fitting inside this purple area. So if you were doing this traditionally, you wouldn't have this purple area. You would have just used your ruler and then drawn lines to that, so you'd have a space, but it would be you know, you'd have two lines, like a line going here and a line going there, instead of this setup that I have right now. So that's about right, where I've got this 45-degree. I can make it a bit bigger too. And there we go. So now we have this, and it's lined up with that. And let me just make some lines so that if you were doing this traditionally, what you would have something that looks more like this, right? Like that. And then you would take this ruler thing, or you could also take a protractor, just get a 45-degree angle. So now that I have that, I'm going to make, well, first I'm going to reduce the opacity of this, and now I'm going to make another line, and this line is going to go from this bottom point, and it's just going to follow this angle. See, and this is why I divided this into like a green side and an orange side, just so I could follow the middle angle. And just going to take that to my vanishing point. All right, so now I have a new point, and that is right here. So now I have this new, let me make that a bit easier to see. I have a new point right here. All right, now what I want to do is take this new point and go from here and go back to this original bottom corner that we had. And what that does, so I went from this new point back to the bottom corner, and then it crosses, you'll notice it crosses the red line right here. So once I have that, we're done. We're done the square, because all we have to do is take our vanishing point, go through that red, or that, I guess, teal line, and that is going to give us the position of this square. So now, you just go through that point, and let me do that again. Through that point, and that will find the back end of this. So now we have our square. But how do we get a cube? All right, well, to get a cube, what we have to do is more lines. So many lines, so many steps. I know it's really annoying and frustrating, but bear with me. We're in this together. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a line, and I just made a new layer in Photoshop, and I'm going to go from this vanishing point right here to this. I'm going to create a line like that, okay? Let's do that. A line from here to here. And now I'm going to press Control T, and that's going to bring up, again, the transform thing. And remember the anchor point. So I'm going to take the anchor point, and I'm going to anchor it right here in this, on this vanishing point. That's going to allow me to rotate this, and it's going to pivot at that point. And I just want to rotate it until it's on the horizon. Okay? And at the end of that, just going to mark that down. Mark right there. Okay? So now we have another point. Now, you could also do that on the opposite side. I didn't have to measure from here to here. I could measure from here to here, and then rotate that up to the horizon. And then at the end, I would get a point. Again, if you're doing this traditionally, use your ruler and just measure the distance. So from here to here, measure the distance. Let's say that distance is X. Then come from here to here and then get the same distance. All right, so now we have this new point. Now we have to make another line and find another point. All right, so now starting at this bottom corner of the square, I'm going to hold Shift, just going to drag a line horizontally across. And now what I have to do is I have to take this point and go through this point and then touch somewhere on this new line. So let's do that. I'm going to get a line from this point. It's going to go through this point, and it's going to touch right there. Now what I have to do is make a new layer, and I'm going to go from this bottom point to that new point. So I went from here, bottom of the square, to the new point, and now I have another line. I'm going to hit Control T, and I'm going to rotate this, and I couldn't see the anchor point, so But anyway, I'm going to rotate this up. And unfortunately, that goes out of my page. So I'm just going to move this whole thing so that it is on the page. So let me just move this down. All right. Okay, so now we're on the page and we have this top area. And that's it. So that is the height of my cube. And all I have to do then is go from here to here and just fill in, you know, the rest. This should be not too difficult to do now. And I mean, if you're familiar with 2-point perspective, you should be able to build a cube in 2-point. And there we go. So now we have our cube in 2-point perspective. And I know it was a lot of work, but it's really important to know how to build perfect squares and perfect cubes in perspective. And if you're wondering why, it's because if you have a perfect cube or if you have a perfect square, you can figure out any other flat shape in that. And if you have a perfect cube, you can do the same. You can break it down and you know, easily create any other shape within this. So just gonna outline it in black. I'm gonna freehand it because I'm tired of drawing straight lines with a line tool. Yeah, so hope it helped, and thanks for watching.